As the deadline for Kosovo's long-term status nears, conflicting parties meet again. But can they achieve common ground? And what will happen if Kosovo declares unilateral independence? This is Inside Story. Hello, I'm David Foster. Two sides at loggerheads, 2 million people in limbo. Can the issue of Kosovo ever be resolved? Well, fresh talks in Brussels on its bid for independence appear to have yielded little so far. Serbia says it'll give only broad autonomy to the province it sees as the birthplace of the nation. But ethnic Albanians within Kosovo want full independence and say they'll declare it unilaterally if the impasse can't be bridged. Meanwhile, the United Nations, which has administered Kosovo since the NATO bombing campaign 8 years ago, has a plan to introduce what it calls supervised independence if agreement can't be reached by December. So is there a way to resolve the differences, and what is the background to today's complex situation? Kosovo is a tiny territory in the southern Balkans with a picturesque landscape and a violent history. Ethnic tensions started in the 1980s but were harshly contained by the Yugoslav government. At that time, Kosovo was an autonomous province within Yugoslavia. The Serbian leader Slobodan Milosevic later curtailed that autonomy, which helped lead to a brutal separatist war. In 1999, after reports of Serb-backed massacres among the mainly Albanian population, NATO launched an 11-week bombing campaign against Serbia. And since then, Kosovo's been administered by the United Nations, backed by NATO troops. Kosovo has a population of just over 2 million, more than 90% of which are ethnic Albanians. Around about 5% are Serbs, and the region remains officially part of Serbia. And this is the bone of contention. Kosovo wants to be independent. Serbia wants it to be an autonomous province within the country. Last year, international negotiations began, and UN Special Envoy Marti Ahtisaari said Kosovo should get a form of supervised independence. The deadline for talks is December the 10th, and by then Serbs and Albanian Kosovars are supposed to come to an agreement. But there isn't much common ground.
Now it's time for the international community to decide the future of Kosovo, which is independence.
Our government will never accept the plan. And if our government does not accept it, it is not valid for us. And if the balance of power ever changes in the world, Kosovo will be given back to Serbia.
Serbs consider Kosovo part of their territory, even as the cradle of their civilization. They say they will never accept its independence. Albanian Kosovars, on the other hand, will accept nothing but independence. And they have the United States' support.
Time is now. I made it clear that two things. One, that we need to get moving. And two, that the end result is independence.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin says Russia won't be supporting anything that the Serbs oppose. Russia also says that the United Nations doesn't have the right to change an international border without the agreement of the country involved. Russia is worried that Kosovo independence may encourage a wave of imitators across the former Soviet Union, something that Russia feels Western powers are ignoring. The Serbs are grateful for Russian support. Kosovo's Albanians, however, are running out of patience. Well, joining us now on Inside Story from Belgrade, the Serbian capital, Slobodan Samardija, assistant editor of the Foreign Desk Politica newspaper. In London, Bejtula Destani, director of the Centre for Albanian Studies, and in Washington, Charles Kupchan. He's the director of the Europe Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations. Let me come to the interested parties in just a moment. I'll go to Washington first of all, and Mr. Kupchan there. As an independent observer of the international scene, do you think there's any chance of the two sides reaching some sort of agreement before this December the 10th deadline?
I would say the outlook is very dim. The positions of the two parties haven't changed much since the very beginning. As you had in your setup piece, the Kosovar Albanians have always said nothing short of independence, and the Serbs have always said anything but independence. And so even though there continues to be an effort to get Belgrade and Pristina to come together to compromise, I think it's very unlikely. I also think it's very unlikely that the Russians are going to back down and allow some sort of a resolution for independence to go through the UN Security Council. So I'd say there's a pretty good chance that we're going to get to December 10 and look at a situation in which the Albanian government in Kosovo starts moving toward a unilateral declaration of independence.
Well, let me ask Slobodan Samardija in Belgrade, from the Serbian point of view, what would you do if Kosovo declared unilaterally that it was an independent country, which it says it will do on December the 10th if no agreement is reached?
Well, from Serbian point of view, declaring the independence is something that will not be legally accepted, because we are one country and Kosovo was always just a province. So I don't think that our authorities will ever accept that independence. But on the other hand, we are ready. I mean, our government and our people are ready to cooperate with the Albanians to find some solution which will be good for us and for them too. What will be, I don't know, but I don't think that 10th of December is the end of the talks and end of everything. If they start to, if they try to proclaim independence, I think that the things will be only worse and not better.
Bejtula Destani, listening to this from London, Director of the Centre for Albanian Studies. Is it absolutely certain that Kosovo will unilaterally declare independence by that date, the December the 10th deadline?
Yes, it is, and it's probably even a bit late. Kosovo should be recognized years ago. And I have to mention this, we do not expect that Serbia will recognize Kosovo. There are other countries in the region and in the Middle East that are not recognized by every country.
Well,
so
I'm sorry, continue your point. I apologize for interrupting.
Yes, and Serbia was, I mean, I just want to make one point here. Serbia conquered Kosovo in 1913 by killing over 50,000 people, and they left Kosovo in 1999 during the NATO bombing. I mean, if they mention any sort of autonomy, we have all kinds of autonomy since 1946. Didn't work. 90% of the population are Albanians. They treat Albanians very badly since 1913. I think its time has run out. We should declare independence in December.
I'm going to go back to Charles Kupchan, listening to this in Washington, D.C., once again for an independent point of view. You talked about the possibility of compromise on both sides. For instance, where would the Albanian Kosovars compromise, and where would the Serbs have to do the same?
Well, there has been a little bit of compromise on the Albanian side already to the Ahtisaari plan, an agreement to give more autonomy to the Serbs that would remain inside an independent Kosovo. And Belgrade has been looking for ways to compromise as well, but the problem is that the fundamental positions that the two parties take simply have no real common ground. And there are a couple ideas that are floating around. Probably the top of the list would be partition, and that is that the northern part of Kosovo is predominantly Serb, and some believe that if Pristina agreed to let go of northern Kosovo and keep it part of Serbia, that Belgrade would then say, okay, we can live with this. If Belgrade says okay, then Moscow is going to say okay.
Okay, well, let's put that
international community.
Let's put that point to Mr. Samardija, representing the Serbians at the moment. Any possibility that you would go for that?
I don't think so, because it is not a problem of the parts of the Kosovo. It is a much bigger problem. I would like to say one thing. In this studio in which I am sitting now, I believe that there is one Albanian, native Albanian. So they live here. They live in all parts of Serbia. So letting go just part of that nation is not a solution for me, because Albanians live not only in Serbia, they live on all Yugoslavia. They run bakery stores, they run cookie stores and jewelry stores. So they had their lives. They were living here, and nothing was wrong with that. So the problem, we are talking only about the people which live on Kosovo, and
okay,
that is the main problem. Okay, because
I was going to come to Mr. Destani. I'd like to get his point of view on a possible compromise, on maybe partitioning the country. What would the Albanians think about just leaving part of the north of Kosovo effectively for the Serbs?
Any kind of partition by the Albanian leaders would be suicidal. I don't think so. Any leaders from Albanian side will accept the partition, especially north part of Mitrovica, which is linked with the mines, Trepča mine, which is so important for Kosovo resources and economy. So that would be impossible. And the gentleman from Belgrade, Mr. Samardia, mentioned that the Albanians lives in Serbia, the Albanian lives in different parts of the former Yugoslavia. So I have just to mention this, between 1920s and 50s, about 300,000 people were removed forcibly from Albanian part of Kosovo, and they moved to Turkey. During the Socialist Yugoslavia until 1966, over 50,000 people they sent to Turkey with agreement made with the Turkish government. This was this situation under autonomy. So any kind of partition we will have lots of problems with Albanian community in Macedonia, and we will open another sort of big problem, which is something some analysts they call the Great Albanian Question. So,
gentlemen, we're going to take a short break on Inside Story right now, and when we come back, we'll be asking, could the UN so-called supervised independence for Kosovo be any sort of solution? And we'll look at what it might mean for the whole region. Stay with us if you will.